crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Good evening and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. A really interesting conversation. Got a lot of ground to cover. So really quick on these ground rules on the front end here. If you'd like to join our conversation, we would love for you to do so. The best way for you to do that is by following what you see there at the bottom of your screen. Call, text, email, whatever's best for you. Also, Hollis Wright makes available each and every opportunity that the attorneys airs. Attorneys from Hollis Wright are standing by to speak with you. That's a free, confidential, and off-air conversation that is yours for the taking. So the opportunity tonight, while the show is on the air, for you to get some free legal advice from the best in the business. Let's introduce our panel leading the conversation tonight. Josh Wright, he's managing partner of Hollis Wright. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. We've got kind of a new format today.
I kind of feel like, back in the day, like pack a pew, I feel like we're packing, we're going to fit as many attorneys as we
experts,
can.
We got it tonight.
We got it.
We got it.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking a little bit, David, tonight about criminal law, DUIs, and when we do shows like that, it obviously is not within the sweet spot of what our law firm does. And we always talk about, hey, if this doesn't fit what Hollis Wright does and you've got a legal question, we're going to get you to experts. And that's exactly what we do when it relates to criminal-related issues. And John Lentine and his son, JC, on today. Was super excited about having both y'all on. JC, your first time on the show.
That's right.
John, of course, is a kind of a regular here related to criminal
He's been
stuff.
on as much as I have.
I know, that's fair. And so we bring them on when it's time to talk about criminal-related issues and DUI, because that's what they do, and they're really, really good at this. So welcome, first of all, and JC, so happy to have you, and congratulations for deciding to be a lawyer.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm still fresh out, so the whole expert thing, we'll keep it right here, but still learning.
Well, this is called baptism by fire. This is how this works. John, I know you obviously this is what you do for a living, and you're really good at it. I noticed you brought with you the Federal Criminal Code. That's a thick book. Explain that to us, because it's amazing the number of criminal statutes that we have.
Well, in the past show, I had come on and brought the Alabama Criminal Code to give everybody an idea of how many criminal laws there are contained within just that code. This is the Criminal Code of the United States Code. This is not all but this contains most of the criminal statutes that we deal with in federal court. To give you an idea, it starts with Title 18 U.S.C., United States Criminal Code number 1, and that book ends with 18 U.S.C. 6002. So to understand the gravity of that is to understand that not all criminal violations in federal law are in this book. There are numerous code sections that contain criminal violations. There's an estimate that somewhere between there's 10 to 20,000 possible criminal violations in the federal system. The idea is that people could be violating federal criminal law and not even know they're doing it, because it's almost lost in the magnitude of how many laws there are out there right now.
How do you keep up with all that? I know, that's it's complicated, but how do you keep up with that when someone comes to you and says, hey, I've been charged with the following? It may be a new and unique criminal violation, right?
That's true. We're kind of used to handling certain kind of cases, but every now and then there's someone who's going to come in and say, hey, I've been charged with a violation of something that we've never seen before. I've been practicing 34 years, and I'd be a liar to say that I know every criminal violation in the federal code. Nobody does. I don't even think Congress knows. In fact, one of the Supreme Court justices, Justice Breyer, wrote in an opinion that there are so many violations now of federal law that no one can be apprised of it.
So talk to me about this. As far as the legislature goes, in Alabama we have criminal codes. Do they sometimes eliminate things that used to be found in the criminal code and add new ones? Meaning, is there kind of give and take where some are being reduced and some are being increased? How does that work?
There's no give and take. It's only an increase.
Gotcha.
Every now and then what we try to do, or what the legislature has tried to do, at least with sentencing reform, is to take away some of the punishments and the penalties or give some reform on that. And then there's also some diversion programs that have been created on the state, municipal, county levels that take away some of the harshness of penalties. But our legislature doesn't have any problem in adding to our criminal code every year.
Let me ask a lay question to the three of you. All right, so a book that size and another book that you brought, that's the federal, you brought the state. All right, so thick volumes. Is it a resource you all refer to? Or, I mean, for areas where you guys are experts and there are certain specificities that you guys kind of, is your wheelhouse, okay? Are those the cases that you don't even have to look to that versus sometimes do you get cases where you're like, okay, I'm not really sure, let me see what the book says about that. How do you guys use that book and others like that?
It's for both. I mean, I'd love to say that I can remember every element of every offense. I probably can remember quite a few on the state level. Right. I can remember a few, but each one of these statutes contains elements that are part of an offense and that the government has to prove. So yes, it's an absolute necessary resource to make sure that you're holding the government to everything they have to prove by making sure they can satisfy each element, or where you are going to look to see what the government can or can't do. Yeah. So, I mean, this is an absolute resource that every lawyer has.
And how about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's exactly right. I mean, the issue is there are certain elements that have to be proven both in state criminal code and a federal criminal code, and that's kind of where John, is good at what he does, because he's able to evaluate, even if it's a new crime that he hasn't had a case on before, to be able to establish and determine what the elements are of that specific crime and determine whether or not, that person is likely to be convicted, to give that advice and say, hey, look, we can maybe plea bargain right here, or, to potentially challenge whether the law is viable, whether it's consistent for that specific case, and whether that person could be convicted of a crime. So it's tough. JC, all right, we're about to get you involved.
Come
you
on.
ready?
Yeah, all right.
Let's talk in general terms, just to kind of explain to the viewers, in general terms, kind of what are the steps that someone goes through from the time that they're arrested in the criminal process itself. Just kind of walk through, you don't have to walk through all of them, but just kind of in general terms, kind of how that process works.
Well, I think I'll start off with the very beginnings, and then I'll let my dad here finish it off. But the very beginnings of the criminal process that, especially as a new lawyer, that I've learned is that you need to call a defense attorney if, for instance, you're being questioned by, or the police want to question you. You're being called by the police for questioning, and you're saying, hey, you call up a defense attorney's office and you say, hey, the police want to ask me some questions. I don't really know what to do here. Well, that person did the right thing by calling a defense attorney, because our advice will be you do not need to talk to them until you have an attorney. Yeah. Or if you have some sort of inkling that you could be charged with a criminal offense, best thing to do is to call a defense attorney. Yeah. You need to. Yeah. So, and then, if you're arrested for something, you'll have a chance to talk to an attorney. But yeah, so you need to call an attorney. That's the first step.
Well, and I know we're getting ready to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk and unwrap that even more about kind of how that process works, and make sure we just go through it so that people that may be having these issues that are watching tonight know that there's someone here to help and answer questions for them.
The horn is sounding, so it's time to take a break. I
thought that was your horn.
That's right. I thought it was mental.
Is that your phone? You're supposed to turn your phone off, Dave. Come on now.
I'm new at this. I'm going to get it. All right, we're stepping aside our first break of the evening. As we do so, a reminder, Hollis Wright is all over social media. Wherever you are, that's where they are. Just search Hollis Wright. You'll find them on Instagram, Twitter. I'm sure Josh is on TikTok. Wherever you are, they're there. Trust me. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right back.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas. Bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
That we would be able to use the resources of the many lawyers we have at this law firm to create a plan that had a lasting impact that also gave back to the community at the same time. And I think we've done just that with The Attorneys.
Welcome back in to The Attorneys. Appreciate you being with us tonight for this topic of conversation. Hey, before we get back to the panel of experts, a reminder, attorneys from Hollis Wright are standing by. About the next 20 minutes or so, they're going to be available. So if you want some free, all-fair, and confidential legal advice, the opportunity tonight to get that, just to pick up the phone and give them a call. Josh?
All right, so John, talk a little bit about just kind of the criminal process in general terms so that, and I know it's important in any lawsuit, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case, to understand from a context perspective kind of what the process is. So kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Well, you know, taking on what JC said, is that the first time people get involved in it, they're usually confronted by the police one way or another. But the process, to think about the process is what's going to happen is if you're arrested, then you're going to be brought, depending on what you're charged with, whether it's a misdemeanor or felony, to a municipality or a county jail, that you're going to have to make bond so you can be released. Bond is basically your promise to come back, and that bond can be made through property bonds or bondsmen, and it's your promise to come to court. Once you bond out of jail, then your case, depending on what it is, will be set in a various court. If it's a municipal violation, it'll be set in a municipality court. If it'll be set in, if it's a felony or a misdemeanor that occurs within the jurisdiction of, let's say, Jefferson County, you're going to go to the district court of Jefferson County. That's where you start. And then, you know, the first real process from that point on, hopefully you'll have an attorney by then, is that your case will be set for a preliminary hearing where a judge will decide whether there's sufficient evidence against you to send the case to a grand jury. And if the case goes to a grand jury, that grand jury decides whether there's sufficient evidence, again, what we call probable cause, to issue an indictment. And an indictment is basically a written accusation of a criminal charge. If you're indicted, then your case travels to the circuit courts, which is the trial level courts. And at that point in time, either the case is going to be tried, it's going to resolve in some way, or possibly dismissed.
You don't want to do this on your own. You need a lawyer.
Yeah, you can't do it on your own. Not and protect yourself, because you know, as we said, there's thousands and thousands of laws out there, and you may be absolutely innocent of any wrongdoing. But that doesn't mean you cannot and be charged, and unfortunately, under some circumstances, even convicted.
That's right. JC, talk a little bit about the difference between misdemeanor and felony and just kind of how that works.
Well, misdemeanors and felonies, it all breaks down to the punishment, or what we know as the length of time possibly in jail. Misdemeanors and felonies are both classified as A felonies, B felonies, C felonies, D felonies, all the way down to A misdemeanors, B and C misdemeanors. Sure. So A felonies and A misdemeanors are all going to be the most serious in punishment. But misdemeanors, when it comes to length of time possibly in jail, you're looking at either no time or up to a year. Whereas felonies, it could be a year and a day to, depending on the seriousness of the crime, it could be life without parole, or possibly death.
You also, I guess, with a felony, it travels with you. I mean, it can have an impact on your ability to vote, get a gun, those types of things too.
Exactly. Having a felony on your record is a very serious thing.
And guys, talk to me about this, because I know we see this a lot. We'll get a call from someone who says, I'm in municipal court because of this crime. But what qualifies as municipal court? I know you walked a little bit through the district court and whatnot, but what allows a municipality or a city to charge you with a crime versus you go into the circuit court? Is it the potential punishment? Is it the type of crime? Is it the violation? What is it?
Well, municipalities have jurisdiction over misdemeanor offenses committed against the city. You still have a right to go to a circuit court from a municipal, what we call a municipal appeal, whereas if you had a trial in municipal court, which would be in front of a judge only, and you lost, and then you could appeal that particular ruling to the circuit court for a jury trial. But what happens is if a person's arrested in, let's say, the city of Homewood for a felony, they're not going to stay in the city of Homewood. They're going to be transferred to the county for prosecution, because the municipality only does misdemeanor offenses, not felony offenses. So if a felony occurs within a municipality, it's going to be transferred over for the county for prosecution.
Can I ask, you hear this term a lot, expungement. So how difficult and kind of what bars have to be reached to get your record if you do have something on your record and you want to get it cleared?
Well, the good news is that in 2021 the legislature added to the expungement law. In the past, the expungement law just dealt with getting cases that were dismissed, that you were found not guilty of, that you had gone through some sort of diversion program and the case was dismissed. Those were certain offenses could be expunged, taken off your record. The legislature passed a law in 2021 adding certain misdemeanor convictions now and certain felony convictions to be expunged. Okay. That didn't happen before. And now that's opened the door for people with certain types of felonies and certain types of misdemeanors, if they go through all the procedural requirements, to get those convictions expunged. Not just their arrest, but the entire conviction.
I see trends in the law on the civil side. I know you guys have got to see it in the criminal side too. Talk just a little bit about DUIs and kind of the trends in DUIs. I mean, it used to be, I felt like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it was a lot easier for someone with a DUI 1 to plead those down to reckless driving. The law has changed a bit, has it not? Has the penalties have gotten stricter over time? Is that fair?
That is fair. And the diversion programs, there may be some diversion programs, but a lot depends on the type of DUI violation you have. Whether if you've blown your BAC level is over 0.15, there it's considered aggravating circumstances that can add to the punishment, including now we have the ignition lock system that can go on depending on what you're convicted of for a DUI, that the penalties for subsequent DUIs go up, the use of convictions from other states to be used for DUIs. It's very difficult right now. DUI is a very complicated area, and the punishments and the collateral consequences are very severe.
When we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit, I want to unwrap the issue of kind of what happens if you are arrested for DUI and how that process works, and maybe some advice John can give. But before we go to break, JC, I just want to ask you, you're fresh out, I get that. Do you have an area of the criminal side of law that you're leaning towards right now that you really like? I mean, is it DUIs, domestic violence? Have you learned kind of what you like so far?
Actually, the main thing that I've been doing are not only traffic tickets, but I've handled some DUIs now. Okay. And just as my dad said, it depends on the county, but sometimes there won't be diversion programs, and you would be surprised to know which counties don't have those. Yeah. So, but I've definitely learned a lot about DUIs, not only in municipalities, but also county courts as well.
Well, good. We'll unwrap that when we come back.
All right. We're stepping aside. Our final break of the evening. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right back.
I'm attorney Carter Clay with Hollis, Wright Law Firm. If you've ever been involved in a civil lawsuit or been a witness to an accident, then you may have been asked to give deposition testimony. In this week's Legal 411, we are answering the question, what is a deposition and why am I being asked to give one? Depositions involve the process of a person giving under oath testimony that is outside of court. The person giving deposition testimony is referred to as the deponent. Depositions are taken in the presence of a court reporter, and the court reporter records the testimony. After the deposition, the attorneys for the parties received a typed transcript that contains all the questions that were asked by the attorneys as well as the answers given by the deponent. The purpose of taking depositions is to ensure that the attorneys for the parties have a full and complete understanding of the events giving rise to the lawsuit, as well as an understanding of the testimony that they can expect to hear from witnesses at trial. Another reason an attorney might want to get deposition testimony is that it allows the attorneys to better prepare for trial and to develop a strategy for presenting the case to a judge or a jury. At trial, the deposition testimony can be used in several ways. First, if a witness on the stand deviates from the deposition testimony, an attorney can use the deposition to impeach the witness. Also, if a witness forgets certain facts or events, the deposition can be used to refresh the witness's recollection. Finally, in some instances when a witness simply cannot attend trial, the trial judge has the authority to allow the deposition testimony to be read to the jury. If you are a party to a lawsuit and are requested to give deposition testimony, your attorney will likely spend a significant amount of time preparing you for the deposition process to put you at ease and make you feel comfortable. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WBTM 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. About 6 minutes remaining in the program tonight, so if you want to take advantage of that opportunity to speak with attorneys from Hollis Wright, you got a few minutes to do so, so be sure and take advantage of that opportunity. Josh?
Take us through a DUI stop, John, because that is something that I think can be complicated, and just having some context and understanding of how that process works could be helpful.
Sure. There's, basically you're going to run into two ways that happens. One, either a roadblock set up to look for DUI, or two, that you're pulled over. Generally, you're pulled over, the officer will come up to the car, begin to ask you for your license, your registration, your proof of insurance. If the officer says they smell alcohol on your breath, they can ask you out of the car to perform field sobriety tests. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can decline to do those. Now, that's not going to keep you from being arrested if the officer feels that there's sufficient evidence of intoxication. But if you are arrested, then you're going to be asked probably to submit, and you will be asked to submit, to take a blood alcohol test, a Draeger test. And if you refuse to do that, which you have a right to do, then you have potential for a 90-day suspension of your license, regardless of what happens on the DUI, if you're charged with a DUI and how that's dealt with. So the reality is you can refuse that, and then there's things that lawyers can do to deal with that particular suspension. But if you blow that and you register anything alcohol related, you still can be charged. Even if you blow below 0.08, which is what our state is, if you blow a 0.07, that's not going to mean you're not going to be charged for driving under the influence. Mm-hmm. So when people ask me, should I do it or should I not do it, my view of it is I don't know of any machine that I totally trust. Right. Yeah. And I'm not trusting that one. And I would suggest, even though there's a potential loss of license and a suspension for not doing it, I'm not necessarily feel like that you should provide the state with any more ammunition than it already has.
Yeah, talk with us just for a second about the prevalence of recreational drugs in society. I feel like has definitely increased in the last 5 years. Some of these claims relate to that, don't they?
They do. One of the things that the police use to get into a car to search a car now is the smell of marijuana. If a police officer says he or she smells marijuana emanating from your car, not whether it's raw or burnt or whatever, they have the right to go in under the way the law is written now to search everything in your car. Now, there's litigation going on, and there will be litigation going on, especially after medical marijuana passes in this state, and as it already has. So that's going to be an issue that's going to be coming up, because quite frankly, you know, in many other states where marijuana is legal, that's not a ground or for probable cause anymore, the smell of marijuana.
Yeah.
So,
JC, the charge for a DUI 1, DUI 2, having a child in the car with you if you're convicted of DUI, those have gone up substantially in recent years too, have they not?
Definitely have. They definitely have. And the state or city prosecutors will take that into very serious consideration, as well as the judge, especially if you're trying to enroll a client who's been charged with a DUI into some type of diversion program.
Yeah.
So,
you know, the penalties have just gone up. DUI 1 is what? What's
600 to
600? It's not less than 600 and not more than 2,100 in fines, and that's not including the price of maintaining and installing an interlock system in your car, court costs, anything as such. It's not including that.
Yeah, that's why you need to have a lawyer involved.
Absolutely. A couple of minutes remaining. Want to give everybody an opportunity for a final thought. JC, you go first, please.
Final thought, really, if you have any sort of concern that you could be charged with a crime, or if you're being questioned, or if you're wanted for questioning by the police, call an attorney. That's the absolute safest first step to take. Just call an attorney.
It is. You know, I'll just reiterate that. You know, you could be totally innocent of any wrongdoing, but if the police knock on your door and say, hey, we'd just like to talk to you about something, they're not there, you know, collecting for the fraternal order of police, all right? Yeah. They're there because they think you've done something wrong. And the worst thing you can do is to try to talk yourself out of anything. It's not going to help. Reach out to an attorney. Reach out to one that does the kind of work that is involved in the situation you're in. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the worse you make it for yourself.
We've only got about a minute. How does it feel to have a son working with you?
It is an interesting dynamic. I'm an only child. My wife's an only child, and we have 2 children, so the dynamic was interesting. When he told me he wanted to go to law school, I was really didn't know what to tell him. He was a biology major starting out, and I thought he was going to be a doctor, and that would be great. But when he came home one day when he was a senior in college, I said, I decided what I want to do. I want to do what you do.
It's got to be pretty cool, though.
It is. It's a different dynamic in the sense of during the day he's an associate, but he's always my son. So,
I get it.
I'm just proud of him for wanting to do it.
Well, you know, we bring guys like John and JC on, David, to help answer questions and provide context in this type of industry. If you've got an issue, you need to give these guys a call, or call us and we'll get you to them.
Appreciate it.
Great job.
Good to meet you guys.
Great
Good
job.
to see you. Thanks so
much.
much. Thank them for being with us. Thank you for being with us as well. We'll see you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.